Hi. Hello.
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 Hello, and welcome to Architecting.
First, thank you for joining us. Carol Ross Barney here, the 2023 AIA Gold Medal winner and keynote speaker at our conference. I really liked that story of how you came to architecture and yeah. The architect as a profession isn't always visible to everybody, right? And understanding what that is, and you had this story of, well, yeah, you tell it maybe of being in school and
being in school
with your
yeah, you're right about what people think of architects. What's the public persona of architects? He's like the guy who owned Mr. Ed,
right? Yeah,
and then Paul Newman in the building. The Brady Bunch guy. Yeah, and Paul Newman in that Burning Tower movie.
Right.
I mean, the people just don't think. Although we're very respected.
Yes. Yeah.
If you do, if you look at those surveys,
make a lot of money, and
they do.
Right.
They do. Although I'm going to push back on the money thing, because even though I think we're hugely underpaid, I would hate to discourage anyone from being an architect about money.
Right.
Because, I mean, it is comfortably middle class. I think we should be paid more. But I think most people should be paid more, so I'm probably not a good person to talk about that. Anyway, but I didn't know any architects growing up. I was really good at fixing things. And looking back, most architects are makers. Always you see that, they do carpentry or they fix hot rods, whatever. There's this thing about being able to put things together in 3 dimensions. And then I also could draw pretty well, so I thought I was going to be an artist. But especially during the Kennedy administration, and he always talked gloriously about what we owe our society, I decided that painting wasn't enough. And so when I was getting ready to go to college, I went in to see my high school guidance counselor, and I told her I wanted to be an architect. And I went to an all-Catholic girls' high school. I don't think she ever had anybody say that to her before, that they wanted to be an architect. But, to her great credit, she didn't say, oh, girls don't do that, Carol. Would you like to be, how about a painter or maybe an interior designer? Instead, she said, oh, okay, I'll go find out where you should apply. And so when I arrived at the University of Illinois, my parents didn't say anything about it either, but my mother wanted to be the first woman president of the United States. Instead, she had 8 children. I mean, go figure.
Wow.
But, in any case, when I got to school at the U of I, my freshman architecture class was over 300, and there were 12 women.
Wow.
And that's when it sort of hit me. It's like, whoa, this is interesting.
Well, and how did you even make that jump from, painters don't make quite enough impact, so architect, right?
I thought, architects, to me, the idea of building space, building cities. I mean, I don't think I ever really thought about building houses, although I'm intrigued by building houses. But I saw, maybe being in Chicago is part of it too, a city with spaces that were very impressive.
Right.
So.
But, I like that idea, and I think a lot of us start there and try to stay there of that idea of, okay, let's make the world better, right, in architecture, and we can do that. And looking back, maybe this doesn't pertain as much to you, but looking back at yourself in high school, would you still recommend your younger self to go into architecture to make that difference in the world? Like, I say it doesn't pertain as much to you because you have made such a difference, but it can be hard for a sole architect to impact the world.
That's a really interesting question, and I actually think that is why the reason why you should pick it. And I think I got really lucky when I had this sort of weird, brain flip or whatever. But I think that one thing that is really wonderful about our profession is that you could do that at any scale. you can make the difference at any scale. That's sort of the point I was trying to make, by showing McDonald's, which is a really small building. Oh, that's a high-profile McDonald's. But any
Right.
project that you get, especially where we are today, where society is today, you're going to make an impact, and it's an important one. And if we don't do it, this is existential. The irony of it is that the planet will still be here. Mm-hmm. And lots of things will live on it. It's just that we won't have a environment that's suitable for humans to live. I hate to be dire.
Right, yeah.
But this is dire. And so, yes, what you do is great. Yeah, any individual could do it. You can stop eating red meat, you could drive an electric car, whatever. But you get to do it in your daily work, not just your existence. I think that's important. And if you work on houses or small things, or if you're even part of a big team, you're still making that contribution. So, yes, I would definitely recommend it.
Yeah.
And you know what happens? I teach fifth year. I've been teaching fifth year, which is that's the last one, the ultimate class. And usually when I'm trying to figure out what I want to teach, I do want to teach about citizenship and how architect citizens are so important. Because, I get them at fifth year. They know how to draw. They know how to make models. They should know how to program. If they've gotten that far, they're in trouble, okay, if they don't know that stuff. So I think we have an unusual opportunity, actually, that we should seize.
Well, and I love asking in these interviews, I love asking people, okay, yeah, what was your experience in school, and what was that thesis, and then what did you do that next year, and how sometimes it's so easy to be hit by that wall.
Oh God, the wall is there, isn't it?
And I liked how you talked there about, okay, everybody can make an impact, right? It's not necessarily saying, okay, how am I going to come out and change the entire world, but it's how do I make the world a little better with this one thing, and then how you framed your talk of saying, okay, this talks about safety, resilience, and inclusion, right? And how you sort of broke down projects in that way.
I know the wall you're talking about.
Right.
I do. Okay, so this is my story. I graduated, and we're in the middle of an economic recession, which is, architecture is so vulnerable.
Right.
And all of a sudden, all these jobs evaporate. So I was wandering across campus through the Illini Union, and there were some tables out, and one was for the Peace Corps. And so I thought, I never thought about going to the Peace Corps, but I picked up an application and I turned in it. I put on it, by the way, that the only place I wouldn't go was Latin America. I wanted to go to India or Africa. I thought that was where I could really make a difference. So see, I'm on the same track. I'm still the high schoolie who's trying to make a difference.
Right. This is like the kind of 70s?
It was 1971.
Okay.
And so about 2 weeks later, I get a call, and they said, person on the line says, well, we got your application, and we'd like to offer you an assignment to Costa Rica. And I'm going man, that sounds really Latin America to me.
Right.
And so I landed up going to Costa Rica. It was very Latin. I didn't know where it was. This is, talk about how stupid and dumb and basically unexposed I was, uneducated. It's right on the isthmus. It's this little country that stretches from the Atlantic to the Pacific, and it's interesting because it has one of the most diverse ecologies in the world, because it's on the Pacific Flyway is the reason. So anything, bird, beast that's migrating goes through Costa Rica.
Right.
And so I went there, and I was attached to a program that was designing national parks. So I felt I was doing all kinds of great things. I did a master plan for a coral reef. It's this is great.
Wow.
I went to architecture school, and now I'm planning coral reefs. And I did a historic restoration of a house that had huge meaning to Costa Rican history. And I come back to the U.S. and I get a job with Halliburton Root. And my first assignment is putting the date on 500 sheets of drawings for a hospital. Then my second assignment is I got to draw parking lots over and over again. Then I graduated and I could draw toilet rooms over and over and over again.
Nice. Once they could trust you enough. And
yes. And I know the feeling. Just right then I'm what is this about? What happened to the idealism?
Right.
And I think that is, in my studio, that's one thing that I really hope never happens, because every job has a certain amount, I guess you could call it drudgery, but there is some routine work that has to be done so that your product, your services are complete. And I always try to be hyper alert that you see how that fits into the bigger world. And I know the wall you're talking about, and I think the way to do it is to keep the conversation going like we are today here in Keystone, and talking to each other and staying on top and knowing where the opportunities are. Because, there are moments of drudgery. There's no question about it.
Right.
Yes.
And you have to
Door
put your dues
schedules
in to,
are boring.
Right.
There's just no way around it.
Yeah. Yeah. And so in your firm, you try to just paint the larger picture of that drudgery to give them a sense of it, or you're trying to insert different things in to give them that sense of purpose?
There's two parts of it. One is we try to, it's so funny, one speaker said they didn't have a vision, one said they didn't have a mission, I can't remember.
Right, yeah, no mission statement, right.
Yeah, we definitely like to hire people who share our vision. And it's sort of a Pollyanna vision, I will admit this. But I think that this is another connection that I personally believe in. I think that you're the best designer when you're optimistic too. I think when you start being pessimistic about the work, you also aren't as creative. I think architecture requires optimism.
Right.
But anyway, so we do it a couple ways. One is that if you accept our vision, we hope that you see where this project fits in the bigger, or where your particular activity. The other thing about that is I've been really aware for a long time that while we may share a vision, what brings me joy isn't necessarily what brings the next person joy. I remember working on a project years ago. This is a guy who taught it to me. And I was really happy because, the owner let me do something really crazy inventive. And my project architect, his name was Chris. I'll never forget Chris. I owe Chris a life bump. He said, "Oh no, this is terrible. We have to do more drawings." He was so involved in making the process smooth. And we talked about it. We got over it. It was a beautiful building. But I realized then what gives him joy, what makes him scared and what gives him joy isn't the same thing that what gives me joy. And so the other thing I try to do is I try to understand what people are really good at, what makes them happy, and combine them with people who basically fill their gaps and they fill that person's gaps.
Right.
Because that can also make a project, sort of more
right. Exactly.
More satisfying.
Yeah.
And then the final thing is we try to accept even projects that are not glamorous. Oh, let me give you an example. We're doing a project now for the Chicago police. Work improvement type of project. We're doing locker rooms, conference rooms. The Chicago police stations are in really terrible shape. So and we're doing front of house too, where you touch the police first. And we took the project because we thought it was noble that, to make, if policemen are mean, maybe they wouldn't be more, this is an exaggeration, but they workspaces have to be
right.
Good.
It affects
and that
everything.
the front door experience. And so many people in cities, the first place they touch social service is with the police. That we needed to do this project, even though it wasn't glamorous. It's like 30 stations, and it's just But I'm not lauding us for that. But what happened when we announced that we had been awarded this commission, there were some architects in my office there where they were shocked. They said, "How can we work for the police? This is terrible."
From a political standpoint,
yes,
or from a drudgery?
Yes, from a political standpoint.
Right.
They said, "We can't believe you accepted this project. Please don't assign us to it." And so. And what we did is we set up a series of lunches and seminars, and the table was completely open. You could say anything you wanted. We explained why we took it, that this was workplace improvement, and we thought, the same thing you said a moment ago, if you're not at the table, how do you get to talk?
Right.
So that's the other thing I think that is unusual about our studio is that we'll turn something that seems to be a problem, a political problem in the studio, into what I hope is a positive or at least a greater understanding. The other thing is if you never, like at the police after that, you never want to work at them, at least I think you have a better understanding of your own self.
Right.
So we are doing them.
Right.
And it's not glamorous, but it's part of our vision.
Yeah, and I like that idea of understanding of yourself, and especially that question of sort of what makes you happy. And I've been trying to work on that a lot lately. Of what is it within architecture, within whatever, like really gives me that joy that I want to pursue. Were you able to really identify that early in your career? And then as your position and your role within architecture and your own firm changes, does that sort of happiness, that goal, that source of happiness, has it changed and evolved?
You know, it's real interesting. I would say that I knew those things while I was pretty young, but I didn't know them well. It's so funny. Whenever my students tend to say, "Oh, Carol, you're the complete architect." I am not. Some things I can't do. I'm not good at them. I don't like doing them. There's some things I'm really good at. I think better than other people. And I knew those. I didn't know what they were exactly, but I love ideas. I love being a contrarian. If someone says this is the answer, my question is why. I want to go 180 degrees and look the other way and see what's on the other side. Okay, so I'm really good. Get me in the beginning of a discussion. I'm great. When things bog down, like in the middle of a job, I'm really, really bad. I'm really bad at planning what we have to show on the drawings. I'm really bad at, I'm really bad at coordination. I understand it, but I'm really bad at it. It doesn't bring me joy, but I'm very, very good at detailing. So my partner, one of my partners, he's like my perfect partner. His name is Eric Martin. We've been working together for probably 20 or 30 years now. He says that preliminary design scares the shit out of him. But he loves the planning, the project, getting the guts in, and he loves construction. And we overlap in the detail part. So we just, when we work on something together, I think it's way better because we do have these different strengths. But the other thing I'd like to say, though, is I think we're getting out of it. There's this thing about the starchitect, the superstar architect. There's one guy that's leading the band.
Right.
And that you're only good if you're a designer.
Right.
That's bullshit.
Right.
It's like so not true.
Right. Yeah.
I've met people who I think are great architects because they do bring two materials together. I mean, in the simplest sense, architecture is putting two materials together. If you don't do that right, it doesn't matter what else you've done.
And then more material, the more.
Sure.
But it starts with the two, and but I love hearing you say that of. Yeah, I'm not a complete architect. I can't do everything, and especially I have my own one-person firm right now, and so I do.
Oh, you have to be.
And I'm definitely not good at everything, and it's that pressure, and I think you're right about finding that right partner that dovetails well. And
it doesn't have to be a partner. It's
right.
just finding out what you're good at and spending the time on that, and then spending your money to fill your gaps.
Right.
Yeah, I know. Isn't that shocking? When I started my own firm, it's like, oh, what do I do next?
Yeah. Or which of the 30 things do I do next, right? Yeah.
It's like, oh, wow.
But I was going to ask you about, especially, I love how, you're tackling these large infrastructure projects, and you're saying a large percentage of your projects are these infrastructure projects, or like the Riverwalk project in Chicago, that it is so complicated, so many people coming into it, taking so long. And from somebody myself who doesn't have much patience, I'm wondering from you how you're able to find joy throughout that whole project, and able to get joy through the whole bringing people together in collaboration and that muck of the right.
I'm glad you asked me that question, because I think that I said I haven't changed much. That's one thing that has changed about me. I share your impatience. I did, and when I
see
started,
a kindred spirit here. Yeah.
when I started working, that was the worst thing. Is we the team, the client, the whole, we see the answer, and it actually realizing it was minimally 2-3 years down the road.
Right.
To me, that was so painful. Okay, this is my advice. It doesn't change. We have some projects that go so fast. The McDonald's projects, 14 months design to occupancy.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
And they're
It's
not cheap.
It's fast food and fast building.
They
Just,
have, they have a stable of contractors, and they're not afraid to spend money. But those are not most of our projects. I think construction is too slow. I think that's one thing that will change in the future. But most of the time, it can be really a long time before you. We started our company, and it was 7 years before we completed a building.
Really?
We had little things before that,
Right.
but it was 7 years to find a client who trusted us, draw the building, and build it.
What was that first building?
It
what
was
the
a
kind of scale?
post office.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was a post office in a suburb of Chicago.
And
It felt endless for me.
so how did you eat for 7 years?
Well, you do other things in between. You know,
Right.
you do. My first partner, he's retired now, Jim Jankowski, another really great partner for me. We, when we started working, we decided that we really wanted to do public work. I have this idea that if you're my client and you want a house, I'll do exactly what you want. It's your house. And so I wasn't good at that.
Right,
Okay?
yeah.
And he agreed. So we decided
hard
we
thing.
weren't going to do porches for our friends. We weren't going to do rec rooms, but we would do almost anything else. So we do remodels. We do toilet rooms. We would do, sort of the really noble but really grubby work. And that's how we paid the bills.
For 7 years.
Yes. Yeah.
That's that patience that I'm,
But this is it. After you build a head of steam, there's always something finishing. So it gets a little better, but I share that with you. I think if I could do one thing, that might be one of the things I do is I would love to build. Not because I'd like to build because I think you could do it so much more efficiently. Like I'm on a job site, you're like, what do you mean the electrician's not on the job till next week? It's like you're not available.
Right. It's that idea of organizing the project, organizing the design, and then you lose control once it starts.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Huh.
But just that building it is a lot messier than drawing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe that's the way it's supposed to be. I don't know.
I liked your presentation. I think it was I can tell you've spoken a lot, of course, but the presentation was, it was around those three subjects, and then had just enough projects that you could really get into them well, and you could understand the concept, the process, and then the sort of outcome. So going about talks like this with all the projects you've completed, how do you go about choosing which projects to do and how to construct a talk like this?
Since I teach, I'm asked to talk pretty frequently. Maybe a few years ago it was only 3 or 4 times a year. But so usually what I do is I do an annual lecture, and it's really what I'm thinking about more than anything else.
Nice.
And I'm personally very bored by lectures where they say, and then we did this,
Right.
This is the south elevation,
Right.
and here is the lobby, and we use blah, 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 and blah, blah.
Right.
I think your brain works so much faster than that. I mean, a picture, you knew all that stuff as soon as it flashed up there. And so, and why I find those I also find them a little bit mind-boggling. And so I have, for a long time, I've been trying to tell people, give, especially students, since I'm talking to students often, access to, the process of architecture, how your thoughts lead to your actions and how your actions lead to the services and products. So usually I write a lecture a year. This year, though, with the gold medal, I have several.
Right.
That I use.
And I feel like when you get asked to talk, it's, for me, I'm like, oh yeah, I'll do it. And then it's sort of like, oh no, I need to make something to talk about. But then the process of going back and documenting work and thinking about what you've done is so valuable to do that and reflect, right?
Yeah.
Because there's not always time to do that. But
Yeah. No, our design process relies really heavily on storytelling. So a lot of the stuff I showed today, for example, is stuff that we developed to tell the story to the client. It wasn't for a lecture. It
Right.
was because we wanted to understand it and we wanted to tell that story to our clients. The best thing you can have is an engaged client. If you have somebody who's cheerleading, it's fabulous. If they're on the team pushing, that's the best situation.
Right.
So we try to build, if we can, we build that in as early as we can.
Yeah, and that's the whole thing about that 7 years, right? Of finding those right clients that aren't just hiring you because they're your mom's best friend's aunt or something like that.
Yeah.
That they believe in what you're doing and you're able to express what you're doing, I guess, right?
We've been pretty lucky about that. Although Mike made a joke about it when he was talking to me. The first time I met him, he was working for the Illinois Capital Development Board. And I made an appointment to tell him that their design standards were too low.
Nice. Yeah. They can go one of either
Yes.
way, right?
Yeah. I think the other night he said he joked that QBS was quantity-based selection rather. I think I told him that.
That's funny.
And part of it was self-serving. I mean, we were a young firm and we were like, we never get a chance because we haven't done 75 bad schools.
Right.
But
Yeah.
that's how I met him.
Well, and another reason I really wanted to talk to you is your son and daughter-in-law have moved to Colorado recently and have a great firm, Tumu, with Ross Barney and Wei Li Feng. And it was fun to have them on the stage with you afterwards for a little question and answer. And again, I'm married to an architect and we have 2 small kids, and I'm always interested in that idea of how you raise a child of an architect, and Ross saying, I'm staying as far away as I can, and then ends up coming back, and yeah.
Okay, so you have 2 children. You know now that there's no such thing as a baby owner. They're on their own. You just do what they want.
yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Ross has always been super independent. I mean, that is his one of his very distinctive character traits. I don't know where he gets it, but he, even as a child, he had the skill set that you look for in architects. So
Right.
He could build anything. He saw things in 3 dimensions, and I don't think though that our family life was so integrated into my practice. I don't think he ever wondered what architects did.
Right.
But being Ross, he was definitely not going to be an architect because he's an independent soul, and he was going to go out and do that.
But you weren't putting like the Frank Lloyd Wright mother like carousel of
No.
buildings above the bed, and
No.
yeah, right.
No. I don't know if when before we knew each other really well in his infancy, I knew how independent he was, but it was really obvious to me, and I'm sure it's obvious to you with your children, that they have different personalities.
Yes,
And he was
very
going
different.
to be his own drummer no matter what happened. And some of it's hard. I mean, I would love him to join me in my partnership. I would. In fact, I told him that he should stay just because this now, that the first few years of an architect, it's shoveling the trench. It's hard work.
Right, yeah.
And it's not inspiring. And it's
A
very
bunch of bathrooms
discouraging.
and a bunch of porches, and right.
Yeah, and I told him, look, I've already dug the trench, just,
Right.
But, with it's his dream, it's his idea that he wants to do that. So I'm looking forward to the work they do in their practice.
Yeah.
The other thing that's wild to me, though, is it's radically different. I mean, I don't know where to start building houses. We do multifamily, and I feel very comfortable there. I've done, I think, 2 houses in my whole career. One for the chancellor of the University of Minnesota, because I think we would have lost the other commissions if I didn't say yes. But yeah.
Yeah. Well, nice. I just it's such a joy to be able to sit down with you and just gather as much of this life experience that you've done here, and I think Mike Waldinger of AIA Colorado, a good quote he said at the end is that there's no living architect who has made more impact on Chicago architecture than Carol Ross Barney, and just hearing that clap at the end, I think sums up a lot of the appreciation and just the effort that you've put into architecture and to changing the environment and succeeding. So thank you.
Well, thank you. I could object, but I'm going to be, I'm going to.
If you objected, that's a thing I could edit out. So it's, yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to say it a few places. They're like the Riverwalk. We have a team of hundreds, literally hundreds of people. And I think my gift is I am a storyteller. And I can tell people a vision. But without those people, I don't even know the pieces. I learn so much when I'm on a project. I can't even start to tell you. Like really cool stuff
Right.
that I never thought about. But when I learn it from a person that's been their life research area, it's like, wow, that is just amazing. I'll give you an example, just talking about the river. There's 10 feet of muck at the bottom of the Chicago River because it's been channelized and it's not a habitat. It's not compressible. So to do the Riverwalk, all that structure, it's basically a flower pot. It's not. We're not building on the ground.
Really?
And it's because of this muck. Like, who ever thought of that stuff?
Right.
It influenced everything you do
Right.
going forward. So anyway, yes, that's why I think it's so important to be the generalist. I meant that. Anyway, but good luck on your practice. It
Yeah.
sounds like fun.
Thank you.
How long have you been out now?
So this is the 4th firm I've started.
Oh my God!
And so
You are a masochist.
yeah, exactly. I've started.
I used to say-
I've started 4 firms, and I've worked for about 8 or 9 firms. And
Okay.
Yes.
But, so why do you go back and forth?
Yeah. So I graduated in 2009, and my vegetarian doctor uncle wanted to start a hot dog restaurant in Wichita, Kansas. And so he hired my wife and I to do that at 23. And so we started a firm then and did that for 2 years. And he started buying buildings in downtown Wichita and did mixed-use renovations on them. And then my wife went to grad school. We moved for that. Then I went to grad school. And then what was next? We worked at different places. And then I started my own firm. And I got lonely, and so I went and worked for another firm. And then I started a firm with a partner in Connecticut.
Wow, not just different firms,
Yeah.
different places on the planet.
Well, and so that's
Where are you from originally?
Kansas, yeah. And so the partner in Connecticut, I was here and he was in Connecticut, so it was remote. And we did that for 2 years, and I just stopped that last month. And we split up. And so now this is my new iteration of the thing by myself. But I think it's that sort of thing of finding that joy and finding the structure that best allows you for that. And I think it's also, I started firms so young and I knew nothing and I could fake it, but then you need to get some more experience and figure things out from other people.
Yeah.
And then I think I'm ready again, and then I'm not, and I go. So yeah, it's,
Well, good luck.
thank you. Yeah.
It's
Appreciate
hard, I think that a lot of architects have that issue, that they are generalists.
Yeah.
Like, how many of them have you met that are really good musicians?
Right.
Or
Yeah.
really good builders? Or there's just,
Yeah.
it's a curse and a blessing.
Right. But then it is so nice to have those people with those very specific skills in the firm, right? And I feel like sometimes those people, I teach at CU as well, and the designers and those people get elevated, and they have these amazing projects, and sometimes it's easy for somebody to not feel valued if they're really interested in code or something like that, right? But then when you get into a firm, those are those awesome people that can just focus on that thing, and it is a difficult how we navigate that with academia and profession, but just not giving up, and right, having that vision and idea for your career and for what you want to do is important, seems like.
Very true.
But
Okay.
well, thank you. This is very enjoyable. So
I bet you had some good talks. I like what you're doing. It's fun.
thank you.
You can visit architecting.com, that's architect-ing.com, to see images from this week's guest.
And please rate and review the show wherever you listen to podcasts.
Have a great week and keep connecting.